and I lost all my confidence. I didn't see my best friend for a whole year. I was too embarrassed to leave the house and check the way I looked. When my dad passed away, I had an epiphany. I joined a gym, fell in love with training and the way that it made me feel. I decided to compete in a bodybuilding show. I struggled massively after the show. It brought a lot of old habits back up for me. That's when you have to be self-aware and realise that that's not normal, because fitness should add to your life. I was about my journey because I'm passionate about it and I want to help other people.
What's your relationship with food? Can you be grateful for the comfort that it gave you in the moment? Ellie Crabtree, welcome to the podcast. I'd love it if we could start with your story. What's the journey that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today?
It's been over the last probably say 2 or 3 years that my journey really did start. Never really been overweight like growing up as an adult. I was when I was a child. And then obviously I settled down in a relationship. I gained a little bit of relationship weight, which is completely normal. And then unfortunately my dad took poorly. And food just become my absolute comfort in a time where you feel like you couldn't really talk to anybody who understood. I would just turn to the cupboard and I would eat food until I felt satisfied and happy. And that led to me gaining probably, I would say, about 5 or 6 stone in the space of maybe like 2 years. And mentally, that is not a big time frame at all. So that was really hard to come to terms with. And I lost all my confidence. I actually didn't see my friends. I would say my best friend now, we always talk about this. I didn't see her for a whole year because I was too embarrassed to leave the house. I never really put my winter jacket away. I would still wear it in summer because I just absolutely hated the way I looked. And then when my dad passed away, I kind of had a bit of like an epiphany. And I was like, I'm either going to carry on like this and be miserable for the rest of my life, and my dad doesn't have the privilege to live that anymore. I can do something about it and change my life around. And I did, and that's when I started my weight loss journey. Unfortunately, that led to my relationship breaking down because at the time I believed that if I didn't truly love myself, there's no way that I could love anyone else. So I moved back home, focused on myself, and I lost about 5 stone. That was through calorie counting. And then I joined a gym transformation unit, and I absolutely fell in love with training and the way that it made me feel. And it was never really about the way it looked at that moment in time. And then I wanted to push myself even further, and I decided to compete in a bodybuilding show. So that has been my life for the last year now. It was obviously the prep, and now it's life after the show. And I'm just now trying to find other ways to make me happy rather than stepping on stage, because that's not something that I can keep up with all year round.
What was life like before those like 2 to 3 years? Like, what was your upbringing like?
It was brilliant. Like, so we live on obviously a little lonely island, and I've always been out playing. I have a lovely, happy family. However, when I was younger, I actually was a little bit overweight as a child, and I was bullied. So growing up, I think I've always been weight conscious and very conscious of the way that I looked. Which is quite hard as a child because, your focus should be going outside and playing. And when you have these things on your mind all the time, that probably has affected the way that I think growing up. But other than that, I had a really happy childhood. We were always going on family holidays, and it's so strange because my family have never really been sporty, like my mum or my dad. Never really had an upbringing in that side of things. I've kind of navigated that myself as I've grown up and found a love for it.
What was it about bodybuilding that drew you to it?
I think it was purely just to prove something to myself. Like, after being at complete rock bottom, and I honestly just I thought in my own head that I was a failure and that I would never ever be happy again, gaining so much weight in a short period of time. But then when it was kind of actually in reach, and obviously my gym is kind of like a bodybuilding gym, and a lot of people from our gym compete. So I've seen other people do it, and I've always admired them, the hard work and the discipline that it took to get there. And I remember saying to my coach, "Do you think I could step on stage?" And he said, "You could do anything if you put your mind to it." And I was like, yeah, maybe I would. Um, and then one day I just said, right, sign me up. I'm going to do it next year. And I just thought I would do it to actually see if, when it comes down to it, I had the discipline to be able to achieve that prep and get on stage. And I'm so glad I did.
Do you mind me asking, like, what was, you said that your dad unfortunately passed away. Like, what did your training look like around that time? Like, had you found it then, or did you just start with like the diet and stuff?
I just started maybe like trying to calorie count because I'd always done it was always like fad diets. I wanted to lose the weight as quickly as possible, and I didn't care whether it was my lifestyle or not. I didn't even think about it being my lifestyle because at that time I hated running, hated even going for a walk. I just wanted to eat food because that was my comfort. Um, so around the time that my dad was poorly, it was near non-existent because he was at home and we were caring for him. And the closest thing to me at that time was the food cupboard. So I was kind of in like a yo-yo phase. The times where things were a little bit better, I was trying to, kind of rein it in a little bit. And then we'd have some more bad news because it was just bad news after bad news for a whole year. Um, I would have more bad news and I would go back to the food again. At that time, I didn't realise that I was stuck in a cycle. I would binge on this food and then I would be like, right, okay, tomorrow, that's it. I'm going cold turkey. I'm going to try and change my life overnight. Um, and then that pressure forced me back into that cycle again. It'd be too hard, too much. So I would just sack it all off. And I didn't realise that it actually just took baby steps.
Food is such an emotional thing.
Yeah,
Uh, I feel like for most people, if not all, and it is, it, yeah, it can be like a really useful tool. Like
yeah,
food is better than, I would argue, food is better than alcohol
yeah,
or uh, or drugs or something else. I mean, these are all coping mechanisms and stuff, and we all go
yeah.
on our own little journeys with the things that we have. But I suppose it's like, what's the question? I'm wondering, like, what's your relationship with food now? And can you be
So
grateful for actually the comfort that it kind of gave you in the moment?
yeah, that's actually a really good question because like I went for a period of time afterwards, and I brought nothing upon like myself but shame for like the period of time where I was binge eating. But now I do have a different outlook on it. Rather than beating myself up, I kind of look at it like I was 19, losing my dad to cancer, and if that's what it took to get me through that period of time was to go to food for comfort, and that was the only thing that was going to get me through it, then it's not really the end of the world. Um, it got me through a hard time in my life. Now I understand that it wasn't healthy, and you're right in comparing it to drugs and alcohol, and it's really funny actually because they are completely different things, but they're all equally as addictive. The only thing is with food is that with drugs and alcohol, you can eventually go cold turkey and you have to cut it out. Whereas food, we have to still eat. We always do. We have to eat. So that's always going to be in your life. So it does kind of make it harder to break free from because you can't just cut it out or get counselling to stop it. You have to learn how to have a relationship with it again. And I suppose that's what my life has been like now, building that relationship back up.
Yeah, I was thinking this the other day. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if it was on a podcast. I'm sure I just thought it, and it was exactly that. It was like, like I don't know if you know, like I got a bit of a background with alcohol, so for me, it's like, well, it's almost like someone saying, just moderate, just drink less.
Yeah, yeah,
And of course, it's much easier to cut it out. And I've often thought, like, had a lot of compassion and I've not had a perfect relationship with food either, but people who had real struggles with food, like, to be able to like get that moderate relationship with food,
Yeah.
it must be such a big challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And don't get me wrong, like there's been lots of bumps in the road. I feel like it's like it is kind of an addiction, food. So like with any addiction, there's always going to be relapses. But the hardest thing is obviously when you do have these relapses with food, um, you have to still eat to be able to live. Like we need food to be able to do anything, even just sit here now. Like we need calories. Um, so like the next day after you have had this relapse, it's really hard to then try and find a normal again. It's so hard as well because not a lot of people understand that there can be such a big problem with food. So trying to find someone to talk to about it um can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Mm, yeah, I suppose because it's not like one of the sexy addictions, is it?
No,
Like like, whereas drugs and alcohol get a lot of attention, or even like pornography and stuff like that gets a lot of attention now as well. Um, but yeah, food is, yeah, there's so much wrapped up in there. What I know you're doing, you're coaching people through their own like food and diet and journeys and stuff. What's that look like? What the problems they're trying to solve?
I tend to find that a lot of women gravitate towards me because they have also struggled with similar things. So, like relationship with food, body image, overeating and binge eating. Um, and I think like the biggest trend that I notice with the women that I work with, everybody seems to suffer with, and it's quite a common term these days, is an all or nothing mindset. And that's kind of the women that I coach, and it's like either 100% or 0%. Um, and I love working with ladies who struggle with things like this because I've literally just been there like a couple of years ago. But you'd be surprised, like a lot of people will say, I struggle with this and then I do this, and then I'll say that is an all or nothing mindset. And then not a lot of people understand the term or understand that it is such a big struggle. So yeah, that's probably the the type of work that I like to do.
What are like some of your go-to strategies if you find yourself like falling off the wagon a little bit with food? Like, how do you get back on track?
Um, It's kind of just reminding myself now that it's for how it makes me feel. I think the biggest trap that we can get into, and I do see it all the time, is um, purely just eating and training for the way that you look and the reflection that you see in the mirror. If you train like that and eat like that forever, one, you're going to be miserable, and two, you're always going to be stuck in this cycle, and it creates a miserable mindset. So I think the biggest thing for me is asking myself, like, how does this make me feel? How's it going to make me perform when I train? Um, and half the time in them situations, it's not really the best. So then I just kind of strip things back and go back to what makes me feel good, what I know what's going to fuel my training. And the thing is, as well, like, I enjoy that. I enjoy those things. And I think sometimes it's only human to want to have a treat. The biggest thing is remembering not to restrict yourself because that's the only reason that you are going to slip out of routine. If you find the perfect balance, you're never going to really have to keep slipping up because you're always going to have that perfect ratio there.
Yeah, it's interesting cause when you first popped up in my Instagram feed, I was intrigued, and I was like looking at your bodybuilding stuff or whatever, and then I seen you at HYROX class, and I was like, okay, like I'm trying to figure out. It's like there's this contradictory thing that's maybe going on, or this paradoxical thing whereby like you found bodybuilding, it gave you this thing, and then it seems to me like maybe changing your mind around that a little bit, because that also has like a bit of a dark side to it. Would that be fair to say?
100%. And I love bodybuilding. Like, it has given me another level of discipline that I didn't know I had. I've met so many amazing people throughout the time that I do it. My coach, Cade Kendall, he was absolutely amazing. He was like a father figure to me because I lost my dad. So that period of time was
Mm-hmm.
such a special time in my life. However, and I don't think this is for everyone, but I think because of the background that I have with my food, I struggled massively after the show. Kind of brought a lot of old habits back up for me. The long-term restriction whilst I was prepping for the show led to me binge eating again. And I was so in my own head because I was like, I've worked so hard to get to this point where I am on stage and I've broke free from these habits. Um, and I'm struggling with them again. And then obviously being stage lean, having to gain healthy weight back, that messes with your body image massively. And I think it's a big, huge thing for a lot of people, but especially women who compete. So I was in a bit of a dark place after the show. It doesn't take away the love that I have for it. Now, I would say that I just think, kind of give myself a goal of, okay, I'm unhappy. I'm going to try new, different ways of training, see how it makes me feel. And I remember going on my first run and just stop after 10 minutes. And it made me feel absolutely amazing. And that's when I started thinking, I'm going to start trying maybe a bit more like hybrid style training and trying to train for performance rather than aesthetics. And that's what I really have been doing since. I've got no urgency to step back on stage anytime soon. I love going and training because of the way that it makes me feel. And that's exactly what I get from the HYROX style training.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think, yeah, that must be. I talk a lot about like the like post competition, like dopamine drop, like that negative pit that you can fall in after a competition.
Yeah.
I feel it very heavily after HYROX. And yeah, I can imagine it must be very similar. Although, because I think people think as well, I think people think a lot of the time that it's the physical thing that you've put your body through, literally running a HYROX. But I actually think most of it is the mental side of it and the
Yeah.
emotions and chemicals that are going on. So I'd imagine it would be the same in bodybuilding. And like you say, you've also got you've got all this like, is it water loss and stuff that you've got to then build back up.
Yeah. So like
Um,
I think it kind of is very similar to like obviously running a marathon, running a half marathon, and competing in high rocks, stepping on stage. They are all different sports, but it's the preparation and the dedication that it takes to get to that moment. It consumes your life for the whole time that you're training. When I was bodybuilding, like my days were so regimented. I would wake up at the exact same time. I'd do my fasted cardio. I'd have my 6 meals at the exact same time of day. I'd train at the exact same time of day. I'd weigh myself, do my check-ins. I'd go to bed early. All these things for 6 months straight, working towards a goal. Then it's kind of just like, what now afterwards? Um, and I think it's really hard. Like a lot of athletes must deal with this. Like post competition blues or post race blues.
yeah, 100%. And one of the things I was thinking about when I was prepping for this conversation, I was like, what is it that bodybuilding and HYROX have in common other than them being sports? And I'm like, I think if there's a bit of a control element.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what you're saying earlier about obviously bodybuilding, a lot of control around your diet, etc. And then HYROX is like uh, everything fits quite neatly into rows and times, and it's always the same things, and it's very controllable. And if you've lived a life all life it can't be controlled. You know, it is chaotic, and we have grief and things that happen to us and the unexpected. And then these things, whether it be dieting, bodybuilding, HYROX, we find them when we plug them into like this unstable life that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And I just think that so I think it takes, obviously, like anyone could do HYROX, and I guess anyone could do bodybuilding too, but it does take a certain type of person that really like
Yeah.
wants to make a go at it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think like obviously, yeah, anyone can do these things. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. To be able to like all I can describe it as is like make this your lifestyle, like to live and breathe it for that period of time, then it does kind of take a certain type of someone. And it's actually quite funny that you mentioned control because so I started going to talking therapy actually after my bodybuilding and to understand
Amazing.
why
Well,
I
not
felt the way
amazing that you
I
had
did.
to go, but amazing that you went to
No,
therapy.
yeah, and it really did help. But the first thing that she said to me, and it's funny because you've literally just said it, is you love to be in control, don't you? Like she said, your life is so unstructured. She said, do you have a day where you just don't plan anything? And I was looked at it in my diary. It was planned even what time I would have a shower, and I was like, I don't think I do. So I think yeah, that is a massive thing. Like that's a massive trait for someone to have who would thrive in these sports. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm pretty sure that's the same thing's been said to me during a therapy session. like, like, where do you have any room for like joy or spontaneity? I'm like, well, there
Yeah.
isn't. Um, so I mean, yeah, it's that. Yeah, the reason that got you into the things in the first place, the reason that I started the podcast, the reason that I started HYROX, the reason that you started bodybuilding is to do with like a lack, some kind of
Yeah.
the whole that like something that you're trying to fill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and I think we just need to be aware of it, of because even like yeah, when we were talking about addiction before, and you take the food, you take the alcohol, and then you supplant it with other things, HYROX or whatever. And it's yeah, like there's different levels to this as well. And I
Yeah.
find that like the further along you go, you then need to go, well, who am I without HYROX? Who am I without bodybuilding? Who am I without the podcast?
Yeah.
Do I
And you know what? It's
respect that
quite hard to
person?
do. It's quite hard to do. Like
Yeah.
when you live your life like that. I remember like over Christmas time, I ran a half marathon. The day after, I woke up and I couldn't put my foot down, and I was like, oh my God. And I was in despair. I must have cried every day for 2 weeks. And my coach actually reached out to me, my bodybuilding coach, Kid, and he sent me like a 10-minute voice note. And he said, like, you need to try and find who you are, who is Ellie, without your training. And I remember I went home to mum and I said, I don't know. I don't know what I like to do without any of this.
Mm,
And I think that's when you have to be self-aware and realize that that's not normal because fitness should add to your life. It shouldn't be your whole life. It should be like an addition and a bonus. And as soon as it starts becoming the only thing that makes you happy, then I think we do have to kind of look a little bit deeper and find other things because you're not going to be as fit as you are forever. So solely relying on this for your source of happiness can be a dangerous game, definitely.
yeah. Yeah, when you're like yeah, your sense of self is wrapped up in like your physical attributes.
Yeah.
Uh, I fully agree. That's a dangerous game. What how do you feel about grief? Like what's your relationship with grief?
Honesty, not very good. That's one thing. I throw myself into everything that I do, and I'm passionate about everything that I put my mind to. However, grief is something that I still haven't navigated, and I will openly admit that. I just don't think I'm ready to yet. I mean, I was 19 when I lost my dad. I'm 22 now, and I still haven't processed it and can talk about it, but I don't think about it outside of that. And that is probably why I love my training so much because it always keeps my mind busy. Um, but obviously, from talking, I have been to therapy recently, and what our goal is to start touching base on that because, like, I understand now that you put pressure on a glass ball, it's going to crack. So it's only really a matter of time until you do as a person. And you can only go so long without talking about things. I think everybody deals with grief differently. There's no rule book and there's no right or wrong way. And my mum deals with it completely different to me. Um, and think sometimes when you deal with these things completely in a different way, it's hard to understand. Sometimes she doesn't understand why I don't talk about things as much, because that's her comfort. So when I worked in the hospice, our local hospice, doing end of life care, and we worked like closely with families, and it opened your eyes massively, to how different people deal with grief. Um, and it's a journey. You've got to kind of just ride with it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so like multifaceted, and like you say, it seems that everyone seems to have a different way of dealing with it. Do you
Yeah.
have do you have a any thoughts on, would you deal with it differently in any way? Like, do you look at, how do you view the way that you responded to the grief
I would,
after your dad passed away?
yeah, to be honest, I probably would deal with it a lot differently if it happened now. Like I've matured a lot more since I went through that. And the way that I would deal with it differently would probably be to not be so in my own shell. I kind of just went like within myself, closed everybody off, shut everybody out, dealt with things in my own way, which for me was training, keeping myself busy. Um, but now it's like 2, 3 years down the line, and I've still got this journey ahead of me when I'm ready to do it. And so it's daunting. It's always at the back of your mind that you know you're going to have to process things at some point. So I think for me, the only way that I'd deal with it differently was probably to be a bit more open. But we would always want to change something about whatever we do, wouldn't we? And I guess that was my coping mechanism. The way that
Mm.
I might deal with it might be completely different to how you would, but it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you were able to do by turning a very bad situation into a positive, for eventually turn it into something that's like got you on stage doing bodybuilding and stuff, and you know kind of almost kick-started this like career and stuff. That's like a beautiful thing. Like it's like a form of alchemy, isn't it? Like you turn that sadness.
Yeah,
And I don't know, like death's a weird one, and I've got like, I'm quite fascinated by it, to be honest, and
yeah,
think about it quite a lot. Then people
yeah,
think I'm a bit weird. I am, but like, I think it's a really good thing to like keep you grateful of being alive and the
100%.
possibilities. And yeah, like I have, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I've got like this thing on my wall downstairs. It says Jason's life in weeks, and it's like, if you were to live till 80, which obviously I would be grateful for, the amount of weeks that you've got, and they're like these little squares. So, so the beginning, so every Monday I come down the stairs, it's in front of me, and I like take my marker pen, take a little breath, and then I colour the thing in, and I'm just like, because like, yeah, as you get older, like it goes really fast,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I try and like think to myself like, did I live last week like in the thought that I could die? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that we're all going to die, and it's like, so why be afraid to like live the life that you want to do?
Honestly, like
Um,
it makes me laugh because it seems a little bit morbid having them weeks on your own, but like the concept is actually really valid. I think like going through such a big loss at such a young age. At the time, I was like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Like, I wanted my dad to be there at my wedding. I wanted him to see me have kids. He's never got to do any of that. And then I kind of just flipped my mindset to think like, I'm going to do all the things that he never got to do. And then that's always my biggest motivation. And it sounds really dramatic to some people, but like, if I ever wake up and I can't be bothered to train, I think like I get to train. My dad's not here anymore. He would love to be able to get up and go to the gym. So I think that is my motivation for every moment of my life that I have these little self-doubt thoughts and can't be bothered. Even like the decisions that I make in life, stuff that I post online on my fitness page, I always think, oh God, I'm from such a small town and don't want people to say. And then I think we're all going to end up in the same place, as morbid as it is. We're going to all be together at the end. So what's the point in worrying what people think? Because in 100 years' time, no one's going to be here to remember you. They're not going to be saying, oh, Jason and Ellie were talking on a podcast about this and it's going to be in the history books. Unfortunately, it's not. So that's why I feel like it's so important to live in the moment and just do what makes you happy. If you want to do a HYROX, do a HYROX. If you want to run a marathon, run a marathon. If you want to do something simple like go for a walk, that's absolutely fine as well. Like if that makes you happy, then that's going to make your life meaningful. And I think that is a beautiful thing and it's a good way to think.
yeah, for sure. Although this is being published to the world and might be living in the archives for hundreds of
It could
years. Who
be.
knows?
I
Which is
know.
a wild thought. But that's the beautiful thing about podcasting. Uh, it's kind of weird. It's a weird thing where, like, side note, like, where, like, yeah, you're putting these conversations out there that are then, like, in public record.
Yeah.
I often think about it and think, yeah, it's cool. But what was, tell me about your dad. What is your dad like?
He was the best man ever. Like when we lost him, he was like known for his smile. Always had a huge smile, and dead sarcastic, very sarcastic, and he had a great sense of humour. And he was a very strong, independent man, and I think that's where I am so independent because of him. Um, and up until he got poorly, he was just full of life. He loved going on holiday. He was just a standard English man. He would go to work, come home, have a pint, have a Chinese at the weekend. He just liked the simple things in life. Loved his gardening. That's why it's mine and my mum's job now. We keep on top of it. If she's watching this, she'll laugh because I actually don't help because I'm scared of spiders. But I'll sit there and I'll support from the sidelines. But yeah, so he was full of life, and unfortunately, when he got poorly, that actually changed, and it did shift everything. But he did keep his sense of humour, and something we always laugh at. You can kind of turn dark situations into light ones and take like laughs away from it. And we had been poorly for a while. He actually had his leg amputated, and he learned how to walk again. He did absolutely amazing. And then that year, he started to have back pain again, and we kind of knew something wasn't right. So he went back for more tests, and we found out then that it spread from his leg up into his back and then round his body. And he went to Christie's in Manchester, and they come back it was 3 days before my birthday. I remember that, and said that he had 3 months left to live. And this is where we kind of laugh at it. Like, he actually told us that he had 3 months left to live, and then he said, if I time that right, I could actually see the Love Island final because Love Island was on at the time, and I was like, so it just sums him. It just sums him up as a man. But he wanted to go to Turkey in his last 3 months, but he was too poorly to fly. So my mum and dad just did simple things. They went to Blackpool. They had some chips. They went to York, like nice little things like that. And we just made them last 3 months the best months that they could be.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah, I was just doing a little bit of research before our conversation, and I was looking through your Instagram. I was just kind of looking at historical posts or whatever, and I was like, I wonder what's like way back, like, because I was wanting to try and find like when you first started doing your food stuff and your bodybuilding or whatever, and there's just a picture of you and your dad.
Yeah.
Had you been kayaking?
Yeah, they make me laugh at pictures because he would always have a random hobby, and I think that's where I get it from because we all laugh in our gym that we go to. Like, I always have a different kind of focus or a different hobby, and my dad was the same. So like this time it was kayak. He'd randomly bought two kayaks, and
Mm.
it was lockdown, so we weren't working, and so we went out kayaking, and he would take my mum as well. And that was just one of his many hobbies. They ended up in the shed collecting dust, and then the next week it was something else. But he's so funny. Like, whenever he'd go for a walk, he'd come back with like something that he'd found on the beach, and we'd always call him tight because he wouldn't buy anything, but he would get all these things from the beach. So one time he come home and he was like, "Oh, I found a hat. I'm gonna wash it. I think it'll wash up well." He found a chair. He found some colouring books for my nephew.
Yeah, I think my granddad's like that. He's always picking stuff up, like bringing stuff back from the, like, yeah, he's 90 next month. But yeah,
Bless him.
I think, like you say, it's those like salt of the earth, working class characters.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I love it. What do you think your dad would think of the woman that you've become?
Well, me and my mum often say this. Like, sometimes we'll just be sat on the sofa and I'll say, "Imagine if we told Dad everything that went on in the last few years." I don't think he would believe it because I was in such a bad place when we lost him, um, that I think if he looked at me now and what I've achieved, well, he would have a heart attack because it just wasn't me, and I had no drive to do that. But I know that he would be proud because he was always my number one supporter, and he always said to my mum, like, I can tell she's struggling throughout that period of time. So he was very aware, and he just wanted me to be happy. So I think, if anything, he would just be over the moon that finally I found happiness and found something that I love doing.
Yeah. What advice would you give to anyone that's dealing with the loss of a parent at the moment?
My biggest piece of advice, and this is something that I wish I would have done differently, is like, don't compare your grief or your journey to anybody else's. Like, looking at other people thinking, "Oh, I should be doing more or I should be doing less." What you have to do throughout that period of time is unique to you. Um, so I think I remember when I just lost my dad and I was looking at someone who'd gone through something similar, and I was thinking, God, like, she she was posting on Facebook and she seemed like she was really struggling. But I had thrown myself into my fitness and I almost felt guilty for trying to be happy. And I think that is the biggest thing that you shouldn't do because it'll eat you up. Um, you have to learn to live a life without them. You don't have to learn to be happy without them. It's just that life has to go on at some point. So I think if you're always stuck in that mindset of beating yourself up because you feel like you shouldn't be doing things or you should be doing things, it's going to make it so much harder for yourself. So I would just say tunnel vision. your journey is your own, your grief journey is your own. But also finding something that gives you a purpose, whatever that will be. It doesn't have to be fitness. Because especially if they've been poorly, my dad, we cared for him for a long period of time. So that was my reason to get up every morning to go and to be with my dad, to help my dad, to help my mum. And then when he was gone, it was like, what are we going to do now? You just left to pick up the pieces of something that you didn't want to change. You just had to get used to it. So finding a purpose and finding something that gets you out of bed in the morning, I think will definitely help you get through a hard time.
I'm so excited to tell you about my first ever sponsor. Bear Bar make the highest quality shower soaps. Those of you close to me will know I'm always recommending and gifting them to people. I've actually brought some upstairs from my bathroom to show you. This one is Nebula Nightshade Fresh Cut Pine. This is one of the first ones that they made. It's got like this oaty kind of texture thing. I once described it to Christian, the founder, as like a cheese grater for my feet in a good way. Favorites are Woodsman, Molten Lather, is actually a shampoo bar, and Citrus Burst, which I've used all of that, so I don't have it. Do you remember those like packs you used to get with Pokemon cards? They're kind of like that. They stack it in your bathroom really nicely. You'll definitely dig it. Once you try these, you will never want to go back to £1.99 squeezy plastic, horrible fairy liquid style soaps. Trust me, it is an absolute game changer. I don't even bother with moisturizer because I've got this fantastic quality soap and a good diet, of course. There's no plastic. It's made in the UK. Honestly, it's just a 5-star product all around. If you'd like to try Bear Bar, you can get 15% off your first order by going to bit.ly/bearjace. That's BAREJASE to get 15% off. Can we talk a little bit about the, is it NABBA?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk us through like what happened there and your journey with NABBA?
Yeah, so that was obviously the federation that I competed in, NABBA Northwest it was. And Tim, he runs it, he's fabulous. They are such an amazing community, because they made me feel so welcome. As a first timer stepping on stage, it's so scary. You don't know what to expect. You're half naked in a bikini on stage, with loads of people looking at you, like that's nerve-wracking enough. But then there's all the factors that come with it. Um, so we had, I did 2 shows with them. My first show was in Southport, and I think the second show was in Birmingham, the Northwest and the Britons, and they were both absolutely amazing. They've been around for a long time, um, and they're just so inclusive and fabulous. I loved competing with them. Um, it was such a scary experience, but it was so rewarding. Everybody comes together though, and that's what I love about bodybuilding. When you were backstage, if I was nervous, um, no matter who you're up against, whether it was your competition or not, they were there to support you. And I think that was the main thing that I was worried about. Is being well, you probably will understand it with like in terms of HYROX when you're at that start line or when you're warming up, you're with people who you're competing against. And I think when you've never been in that environment, it can be quite daunting. But actually, it's so refreshing because even though you're going to be up against each other, um, you kind of come together, and it's why I love sports. It's lovely.
That's cool. What was that moment like? Like the first time you stepped out on stage, like tell me like what was going through your head? Like were you yeah.
Oh, I just laughed because all I was thinking about was please don't fall, please don't fall. And then I kept saying to Cade, my coach, I said, what if I get on stage and I trip over in my heels, or I've got a runny nose, and I trip over in my heels, or I fall off stage, or I forget my routine? Because in toned figure, the class that I competed in, you actually have to do a routine, and I'm not what's the word, elegant. I'm not really that girly in that sense. I've got 2 left feet. So I went with a posing coach, Kelsey Young, absolutely amazing. And I've known her for a long time. I actually went to her dance classes when I was 5. and I didn't succeed in them. So this is why I needed her. And then we built my routine together, and then we come on stage, and my worst nightmare come true. To get down onto the stage, you had to come out of the balcony and down these steps onto a tiny stage, and it was just my worst nightmare because I had some heels on. So I was like, oh
Hmm.
God, as soon as we saw them steps, I was like in absolute self-destruct mode. I thought I was going to slip down them, but it was absolutely fine. It all worked out great. And I couldn't have done it without the support that I had around me. All I remember, I was trying to do the pauses that the judges were calling out, and I couldn't have much water on the day because we were drying my body out. And I'd had a square of dark chocolate while I was pumping up backstage. If you don't know what pumping up is, doing some light movements to get some blood flowing into the muscles. Um, so you present your best on stage. And I had my dark chocolate, and that sent my mouth into like Sahara Desert mode. So the whole time I was on stage, I just couldn't stop thinking, I need a drink. I need a drink. I can't wait to get off.
What? I'm all about dark chocolate. Do you know what? Actually, it within this coffee, I put cacao in my black coffee in the mornings. Um, so I'm a big proponent. But I've never heard bodybuilders talk about it. Why did you have dark chocolate?
It was for the sugars in it, and it's to help you when you're
Oh,
pumping up.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, but
I felt like
presumably, like you wouldn't have a Haribo because it's gonna be like too much sugar, or a milk chocolate or something.
and obviously as well, like Harry bars are quite like carb heavy. Every coach is different.
Mm,
Every coach will tell you to have something
mm,
different, but mine was a few rice cakes for the like good sources of carbs, whole sources of carbs. Whereas like if you're having your sweets, they are quite processed. So everybody
mm.
might have something different, but that's the way that we worked because we knew I'd been eating plain rice cakes throughout my prep, so my body was going to respond well to them. If you have something that you haven't been eating for this period of time, whilst you're pumping up to go on stage, your body could potentially have a reaction. You could start holding water retention in places that you don't want to. So this is why, like, and it's also relates to again HYROX and marathons when you carb loading. Um, Trialing the show day or the race day nutrition is so important because you know that your body is going to be able to take on these carbohydrates or these whatever food it is. So we'd already trialed this food and we knew that carbs were rice cakes, they're absolutely fine. I'd been having jam as well, natural jam. So I was allowed some of that before I stepped on stage. And the dark chocolate was just a treat because I actually hadn't been having that. But we knew that it was probably going to respond a little bit better than some fizzy sweets.
Mm. So the idea behind it is so you're quite dehydrated, so you don't have the water retention of the bloat around your fatty areas, but you have
Yeah.
some carbs because that will go into the muscle glycogen and actually make muscles a little bit and give you a little bit of energy. Is that the idea?
Yeah, definitely. That's the idea. But um and I don't think you should rely on these pre-stage snacks to bring your look together as a bodybuilder. Usually, like the hard
Mm,
work should already be done if you've done your peak week right, which is the week leading up to the show. The aim is to strip your body of the glycogen storages by depleting your body of carbohydrates. Throughout that time, you load up on water. And then leading up to the show, it depends on the person, probably maybe about 2 or 3 days before the show. And that's when you would start carb loading. Um, for men and women, depending on the look at you want to achieve, it can be completely different. Some of the guys that I competed with were doing it like 3, 4 days before the show. However, my look was a little bit softer. They wanted to look a little bit more they come in a bit more heavy, like and hard, and they need like more muscle striations on show. So they need to carb up that little bit more. Whereas I only carved up 2 days before the show. And then because you've had that period of time of loading the water, then that's when we start monitoring our water going into the show. So I was on like 5 or 6 litres. I would then drop down to maybe like 4, 3, 2. And then on show day and the evening of the show, we would put like weigh it out. So it would be like 250 to 200 mils. And that's essentially to kind of like dehydrate your body and to give you that dry look when you step on stage. Um, but then again, everybody is completely different. Every coach would do it differently. Every class that you compete in needs a different look. So I was toned figure. I didn't need to be as strict for that. Whereas athletic figure in the women's classes, they need a more harder look. So they would probably have to be a bit more dehydrated or even a little bit leaner than I was.
Thank you for that explanation. Yeah, it's a world that I'm not familiar with, so
Yeah,
it's interesting as like hearing you speak about it as well, and I can't help but think about like there are such individual differences as well, isn't there, to food? And I mean, I'm working with Paddy Marr at the moment, and we're doing like performance nutrition. And I've always thought like I always thought like I'm pretty yo-yo-y, like for a bloke. And but then you don't know if that's just something you say, do you know what I mean? Or a belief that's not actually true. And then by actually
yeah,
working with a coach, and he's like, "Oh wow, like you really do fluctuate, don't you?" And yeah, so it's interesting, and the water weight thing, especially, like is crazy. Like the other week, I did a little competition in Millham, this hybrid thing. And the following day, I did my measures, and I was like, looked in the mirror, I was like, pretty lean, and I was like pretty pleased, even though we're in a muscle building thing, but whatever, it's nice. And but then what I realized was, I was like, and then like a couple of days later, like it came back, but I'm like, hold on a minute, you were at a competition outside in the sunshine.
yeah,
It's so much of it is water weight, isn't it? And it's like
yeah.
realizing
And you
those
would be
fluctuations as well.
definitely, and I think like that's why it's so cool throughout the like around the time of the competition, and because that peak week is actually the week that your physique peaks because you can't restrict yourself of water and things like that for a long period of time. You only have to do that for like the show day. That's why it's called peak week. Obviously, it's not healthy to restrict your body of water. You'd be
Hmm.
surprised how much your body can transform in just that week, just from doing so.
What what's your training look like at the moment?
At the moment, and this is controversial to any athlete, I don't have a structured routine right now, but there's a good reasoning for it. I actually injured myself over Christmas, and to be quite honest, I'm not really sure exactly what it was. I've been having a few issues, and I was constantly trying to push myself to do my usual workout routine, and I couldn't keep up with it. Every week looks different when you're recovering from an injury. So right now, I'm focusing on building my strength back up to be able to support me in my runs. Um, I'm running a couple of times a week. I am doing some HYROX training classes at Cumbria Strength, and right now I'm training for enjoyment and to build my body back up to its usual self. After this injury, it's kind of knocked me back a little bit. Um, I was just building it back up, but I think the main factor in my training at the moment is for enjoyment. Um, and obviously
Mm.
everybody will say you need consistency to be able to make progress and things like that. And yeah, that's true. But right now, like consistency isn't what I'm able to do because every week my injury can flare up a little bit differently. So right now, enjoyment. I'm not training for anything in specific. Because I think with me, the way I am after the show, I put the competitive side into it, and it takes away the fun for me. So maybe in the future I would love to enter some competitions and do some races, but right now it's about becoming fit and healthy again.
Yeah, I think as well, like also people will probably look like that who know a bit about training and go, actually, that's a good thing because it's almost like you're doing like a bit of a deload, like a long deload,
Yeah,
and sometimes we
yeah,
need those periods. If you're constantly
yeah,
optimizing all the time and going through these cycles, you're not giving your central nervous system time to recover. You know your ligaments and stuff like that, and you know you've had an
yeah.
injury, so like there could be something going on there, anyways. So, I mean, I see it as someone who is pretty structured. Like that destructuring, I think, is very healthy. And
A hundred
to do
percent.
that
Like
for enjoyment.
it's so healthy, and that's what I didn't realize at first. I thought when I had to take this step back, I thought the first thing I thought was, "Oh my God, I'm a failure. I can't even like do my normal routine. I can't push myself. What am I without my routine?" Um, but taking this step back has actually allowed me to slow down a little bit, and that's something that I have struggled to do since the show. So, like Thursday nights, I've started to go into shout out to Charlotte to her beach yoga classes, and that is something that I would have never tried to do because in my head I want to be running all the time. I want to be working at maximum effort and pushing myself, and but that's not healthy for your body. And I think sometimes you do really have to take a step back and listen to what your body's telling you because your body is communicating with you all the time, gives you signs whether it needs feeling a little bit more, it needs a little bit more rest. It's just whether we decide to listen to that. My biggest takeaway from all of this is that I didn't listen to my body, and that is why I ended up with my injury. It was lack of rest, overtraining, and underfeeling. Underfeeling was a key one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that intuition on being able to really understand what your body needs is
Yeah,
like a really high level skill. And you probably only develop it through going through these periods of intense, like loading up and then deloading, and then getting more familiar with your body and being mindful and all these things. And it's hard to really develop that skill
yeah,
to go, well, should I push through today, or like actually
yeah,
should I ease off a bit, or is that like me bitching out? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah.
so it's cool that like you're getting to this level of intuition around your own body, because I think the sooner you get to that stage, like the better you're going to progress and stuff. Because if you looked at like an athletic career or whatever via in like 5 year blocks or 10 year blocks,
Yeah,
then like what you're doing now is just like a little tiny little deload, like along this
yeah,
time
exactly.
of like, and it's
Yeah,
consistency that wins out, isn't it? And you don't want to burn
yeah,
out.
100%. And I think
What?
like I love David Goggins, and I think he's absolutely amazing. I love listening to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like throughout the time when I got injured, I think I thought I was David Goggins. Like I genuinely think that because my legs were hurting, I was tired, and I thought David Goggins wouldn't rest today. So then I would be getting up and I would be training, I would be tired. So I think it's about like reminding yourself that yeah, you can use these people as motivation, but you are not part of the Navy SEAL and you do need to rest.
Mm, yeah, 100%. I've mentioned Goggins a few times, and like I always say, like my first season in HYROX was like Goggins mode, like monk mode, cold plunge at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
out training in the rain, like everything had to be like horrible, and it was all just about getting after it. I had like this massive beard, um, And it was like, but you go through these. This is why training is so cool, because you. I think even Goggins says it's like the laboratory of like the mind. Like you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah,
And then like my second season in HYROX was like about actually learning to do it for enjoyment and smiling,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
which was a totally different level. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, like what drives you and stuff is an interesting conversation and thing as well. But you just seem to like go through these levels, and
You do. You're
it's
figuring it
cool, and it
out. You're just figuring
exactly.
yourself out and figuring the whole like. There's so much to learn within the world of fitness, and there's also as well. I think a tricky thing is that there's so many different right or wrongs. Everybody within the fitness industry will tell you different things because different methods work different from other people. Like people have different opinions, and then you can feel so overwhelmed when you're just getting started on your fitness journey because you start to think, well, who should I be listening to and what should I be doing? And I think that's why it's so important the further that you do get into it, because then you start to understand, well, the person I should be listening to is myself. It doesn't matter who I see online. I've got to listen to me. And that's probably when you start to enjoy it that little bit more.
Mm, yeah, wise words. What's have you got a goal or a mission? Like what? I know you're not really at the moment. You're just in like this phase of enjoyment. But have you got anything like over the horizon that you maybe like thinking at some point?
Um, I do, yeah, definitely. I think my short-term goal for this year is to get back to my top form. So like I'm all about recovery for this injury at the moment. So if I wake up and I'm not rested, I'll take rest days. And I am actively putting in the work to get back to my top form again. So I can be able to then set myself a new challenge because I thrive off having challenges. I ran my half marathon last year and I loved that. I did it on a random morning before work because I didn't want to enter a competition. I still had that mindset that I don't want to be pressurized again and lose love for it. So I would maybe
So
love
was
to.
it an actual competition, or did you literally just
Me.
do the distance?
It was just me. It was just me, my watch,
Love
my
it.
headphones. And then the funny thing is that I went into work that day and I'd just ran half a marathon that morning. And usually you would have a medal or people would come and watch it. And I sat down and I was just like trying to find any opportunity to talk about it. I was like, is everybody do this morning then? Just been out for a run. So yeah, so I loved that. I would love to maybe run a marathon. That would is up there for me. I would love to try and compete in HYROX, not because I want to be successful in it, but just for my own self to say that I've been able to do it. So there are two goals. I don't know which is going to come first. Um, but my main one right now is get this injury gone because it is so frustrating when you know that you're capable of so much. Ultimate goal is to run an ultra marathon. That's my crazy goal that I had. But that takes time and training, and that is going to be further down the line, definitely.
An ultra. I love that. I love like how like into running you're getting.
It makes me so happy. I think this injury has made me realise how much I actually love my running. When you're out there, it literally is you and your mind. And that's what I love, like being able to have that discipline to, because when you're tired, you can just stop. That's the whole point of running, like battling with your mind to be able to run that distance.
Mm, yeah, I wish I enjoyed my running a bit more. Actually, like I don't really enjoy it that much at the moment. I don't know. I definitely prefer the gym and I prefer HYROX. And like I've had people say to me, "Oh, you should do ultras or something because you're a good runner." But I'm like, nah. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just it's not really. I don't know. It just doesn't really excite me that much. But um,
yeah.
I guess but this is what we're talking about is like do what you enjoy.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
although like I did a run on Monday and I really enjoyed it. There's something about I think if you're trying to like get it over and done with, do you know what I mean? Like, right, okay, all right, I need to get 40 minutes in tonight or
Yeah,
whatever. If you're looking at that, it's a little bit boring. But if you're just doing it for the enjoyment, I think it's having that reframe. So, and like running with people is like loads more enjoyable, I think, anyways.
yeah. I
Um,
think a big thing that helps me love running, and I do it now. And this is controversial because some people are really into the running, are all about paces and timings. I will start
mm,
my watch off just to get my mileage at the end, and I'll cover it up like that, and I will not look at it. And I don't monitor my pace, and I don't care about how my heart rate is. I go off how I feel. And usually by the end of it, like over time, I've built up quite a good stamina and a good pace, but I will not look at that watch. I set myself a little route in my head and I guesstimate how long it's going to be, and I'll run that route. And that's helped me take the pressure off running. I think it's when I tried a running plan on Runner and it was telling me to run at a certain pace. The whole run, I was just checking the pace. And for that run, I
mm.
hated it. So going out and putting your music on and just being like, you feel like you've got a superpower. Not a lot of people can run. Like, it's amazing to be able to have that level of fitness. So I think building it up is something that makes you really proud.
Yeah, that's cool. This has been awesome. Thank you for your time and being willing to have a discussion about this stuff and being so open and vulnerable. Uh, I think I'll speak for like everyone who's listening as well. It's really inspiring to hear your journey and how candid you are about your process. And yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in uh, the stuff that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Before we finish, I have a little bit of a thing that I ask my guests, and it is what is what is a question or a reflection right now in your life that you need to hear first thing in the morning before you start the day?
At the moment, for me, the first thing on my mind in the morning is always, what have I got to be grateful for today? And it's such a simple one, but it's I think sometimes when your life is so busy with training and work and working towards goals and like personal issues, we seem to forget the small moments. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in your busy schedule that you actually forget all the little things that we've got to be grateful for. So like me getting up today, like I'm grateful even just to have a roof over my head and to have the opportunity to come and speak about the things that I've been through. And then also I'm going for a run. Like how fabulous is that? Some people can't have that opportunity and they're not well enough. So I think for me it's all about gratefulness at the moment, and that's going to be my vibe for this
Mm,
year.
it's definitely a good one, and like that's like a sometimes that's so simple that you forget that one.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's so true. And sometimes like I can come into a conversation or I'm like over planning and I'll have like all these questions and I'm trying to like almost control how it will go out, how it will play out, and then I'm just
yeah,
like, just be grateful. Like, how fucking awesome is it that you get to do this and have like interesting
yeah,
conversations and find out about like people's journey? Like, it's such a lovely thing to be able to do. Um, so, anyways, thanks for doing this.
yeah.
Um, where can people go if they want to find out all about Ellie? And feel free to have a little bit of a plug of your business too.
Yeah, so obviously I share my whole journey on my Instagram page, which is Ellie Crabtree _fitness. And I have shared everything on there from the minute that I started. I remember I had to go and delete loads of posts because it was just pictures of my dinner that my mum was making me. And over time, I've documented my journey on there and I've built my page up and I've started my online coaching as well. So I've got a group of amazing women That link is in my bio as well. So yeah, that's me. I share everything just on my Instagram. I don't really dabble into social media all that much, because again, it's a pressure thing. I just like to be able to do what I love because I love it, and post about my journey because I'm passionate about it. And obviously, I want to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And I'll link that all up in the show notes so people can check you out and follow your stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Ellie, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Hey guys, it's me. Just a quick one before you get going. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to my guest and that 15% off you can get from Bear Bar. Go to bit.ly/bearjace for 15% off your first order. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.